protectors of the Sunnah, Sunnah followers, protectors of the Sunnah.
In alhamdulillah, wa salat, wa salam ala wa rasulullah. Welcome to another session of our new series entitled The Resurrection. The Resurrection, and believing in the resurrection, believing in the hereafter. This is also another component of faith. Anyone who denies the resurrection and everything that Allah has told us about it, your belief in Allah is invalidated. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us in an authentic hadith that the hardest thing for him to get the unbelievers to accept is the fact that they will be raised up after they are dead. And it's not hard for us to get people to believe and accept that today. Okay, but what it is hard for us to get them to accept and believe is what happens at death, which is the minor resurrection. The minor resurrection, which is death. That's what we're talking about now. This is what is so hard that I find as a dyer to convince people of the things that happen. A lot of people who work in the health field, they believe in these things because they see these things happen at death. Some people who experience the death of a loved one, you know, they say, wow, this is what we learned in class. Oh, so Allah does speak the truth. Okay, but unless you experience seeing a person die and go through the different things that Allah says we will go through, a lot of people find this hard to believe. Because as humans, we would be more comfortable believing that death is nothing but you just go to sleep and that's it. You feel nothing, you see nothing or experience nothing, but that's not death. Okay, the last time we met, we spoke about how, what happens when the angels come to pull the soul. We went into great detail last week about, the other day, about what happens when the angels pull the soul. And I did put together a quiz for you guys today, and I am going to give you that quiz because this topic is so intense and so great and so important that you need to be quizzed on it. We spoke the last time about the stupor of death. The stupor of death. Who can explain to us what is the stupor of death? When we read hadiths that speak about the stupor of death, when you read the Quran and Allah mentions or goes into detail about the stupor of death, who can explain what this is? Anyone, raise your hand. Let's get those hands up. Okay, go ahead, Sister Jamila. What is the stupor of, sorry. What is the stupor of death?
It's the state of being intoxicated at that time.
Can you explain it more?
Death.
Go into more detail.
It involves death. It involved death, and is the state of intoxication.
Okay, what do you mean by intoxication? Do people drink alcohol?
No.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Explain it. What's the state of intoxication? What does that mean?
It's like it's not like you losing consciousness. Well, yeah, like losing consciousness.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's good.
You're not asleep or you're not woke, but you're just kind of in a state of mind wandering, I guess.
Okay, that's good. Anyone else? Anyone else want to try to explain what is meant by the stupor of death? Go ahead, Sister Lucy.
It's kind of like you in a daze and you're not conscious or you're not sleeping, but it also is where you're not aware of what you're doing or what's going on around you as in this world, but going on to the next world.
Okay, what happens when a person gets intoxicated? Look up the meaning of intoxication. This is something I was trying to teach you guys in the other class. To better understand this, then what does it mean to be intoxicated? Can someone look up the meaning of it? Go to dictionary.com, Leon, or somebody, and tell us, read to us the meaning of the definition of intoxication.
This means when a person's affected by alcohol to the point where their physical and mental control is markedly diminished. That's what it says.
Diminished. Okay. Any other meanings for intoxication? Go ahead, Aisha.
Also,
Go ahead.
having lost some control of your actions or behavior
That's what I'm
under
looking
the
for.
influence.
Okay, this is what I'm looking for. What does it mean to go through a stupor or a moment of intoxication? You lose, read that again. You lose control. Go ahead. Read it again.
You lose control of your actions or behavior.
That's it. Okay, what is the stupor of death? The stupor of death is we start to lose control. You lose control of your actions. And this is important, especially for today's topic. You lose control of your actions and movements and all of that, guys. This is a state similar to intoxication. Okay? So imagine that. You know how people act when they're intoxicated. When people are intoxicated, they are not aware, like some of you were saying in your answer. You are not aware. You're not aware. You're not so much aware because you are aware. When you're in a stupor, you are aware. You just have no control. That's the difference. Everybody understand? Okay, when a person is in the stupor of death, the stupor of death, the individual is aware that he or she is dying, but they have no control over their body movements or actions. This is important because today you're going to understand what the prophet meant when he said, you will do the actions that you lived. That's going to make sense to you, that hadith. A person will do the deeds that will take them there to whatever your decree. Remember, Allah has already determined who amongst us is going to be in hell. And at the moment of death, for many of us, your last actions, your last movements can determine where you headed. So that's the stupor of death. Everybody understand that? Yes, I'm aware of what I'm doing. Unlike being drunk, I am aware. But some people say that drunk people are aware of what they do too. You know, I am aware of what I do. I'm just not in control of what I'm doing. I am aware that I'm sitting here fornicating. I just can't control not doing it. Everybody understand what the stupor of death is? It's to lose control of your actions and movements. It's when the person is aware that he or she is dying, but they have no control over what they do when they're in that state. And this is going to make sense to you when we hear about Muslims who had a bad ending. Okay, look at question number 2. True or false? Only those who were sinful and weak experienced the stupor of death. Is that statement true or false? Only people who were sinful and weak in this world experienced the stupor of death. What do you think? Go ahead, Sister Mina.
It's false. And can you hear me?
Yes. Any evidence?
Okay, yes, I have a couple evidence. One of them is when Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, described the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, said that I never saw pain more severe than this. And another hadith is when Umar bin Asa was on his deathbed and his son said, "Father, you are about to die." And Ibn el-Asa, I don't know if I pronounce his name, was one of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, who was given good news of being in paradise. So just to go into details of that, is basically his son said, "Oh, Father, you are about to die. Tell me, what do you see?" And then he said that it's like he's laying in a box and he's breathing through a needle, an eye of a needle. And as that he feels thorn is piercing through the bottom of his feet all the way to the top of his head. So that's one example of basically you're not just a sinful, wait, it's one example. Okay.
Exactly. And also, like Sister Pamela type 2, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said everyone will experience the pains of death. Everyone will experience the stupor of death, including me. And that's what he was experiencing. Right before he died, he experienced the stupor of death. He woke up, put his hands in a bowl of water. No control of his movements. Here he is dying. He wakes up. Oh, puts his hands in the water to make a wudu. Okay. His last deeds, worship, deeds of worship, if that's what you lived your life doing. Right before he died, he was sitting there dying, woke up, brushed my teeth, give me the mishwak. Mishwak. That's the stupor of death. Okay, you're aware that you're dying, but you're not in control of your actions, your movements. You're doing the deeds that will take you there. You're doing the deeds that determine whether your ending is good or bad. Okay. All right, good job. Let's look at question number 3. Is the stupor of death reduced for some people? And if so, whom are they reduced for? Who can remember that? Is the stupor of death, in other words, do some people experience less pain, less intoxication than others? And if so, who are these people that experience less pain, less intoxication than others? Come on, guys, get on this mic. Put them hands up. Brother Abdul Nasher. Brother Abdul Nasher. Is the stupor of death reduced for some people? And if so, what kind of people or what people? Brother Abdul Nasher. Amina Muhammad, go ahead, Fresno.
Layla, I didn't hear what you said.
You better pay attention.
No, my phone is ringing. I can't help that. I didn't know what you said.
Is the stupor of death reduced for some people? And if so, what people?
Okay, the people that don't fight it. The people, is that what you're talking about?
No, you got to pay attention in class. No.
Okay.
Okay, Anissa, is the stupor of death reduced for some people? And if so, what people? Fame, Fatima, Mayliun, go ahead.
I'm gonna say the martyrs, because their cause of death is already tragic and like horrific, and the angels of mercy are gonna come up to them and let them know right away before they die, like, I'm about to take your soul, like, quickly.
Exactly, guys. The martyrs. For example, the martyrs, their stupor is reduced. Okay? The righteous people, people who are righteous and pious. The righteous and pious, theirs may be reduced, like our Prophet Muhammad. Even though he went through the stupor of death, it's not as severe as Pharaoh went through. Pharaoh went through some real serious stupor. Not the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The martyrs, because their deaths were so tragic anyway, for the sake of Allah. Their pain and their suffering at the time of death is reduced. Like Meleun said, the angels will comfort them and calm them. So good job. Yes, so it is reduced for some people such as the martyrs and people who were really righteous. And you get to recognize that. You get to recognize that, guys, if you're seeing people die. The last breaths that a person take, can determine whether that person is having a good ending or a bad. Okay, good job, Meleon. Let's look at the next question. The righteous believer fears death as any other human being does. So how does the taking of that person's soul differ from the hypocrites? We talked about how the prophet said every human being will fear death. Even our prophet did. That's just human nature. So since we all fear death, how does the taking of my soul, if I'm a believer, differ from a hypocrite's? How a hypocrite's soul is taken? Go ahead, Anissa.
Alhamdulillah. The righteous believer will fear death as other humans do, but the angels will counsel and coach him. Come on, it's okay. We're going to help you out. He's going to still feel that pain. Now, the hypocrite is different. That hypocrite's going to be fighting and want to come back and fussing and probably cussing and all kinds of stuff, but he's going to be ripped out.
Exactly.
Ripped out.
Yeah, the righteous believer has the angels to comfort them. Those angels will know that they're afraid and will say, I know you're afraid. Calm down. Allah is happy with you. The angels will comfort them and let them know that they're taking their soul and that Allah is happy with them. Whereas the hypocrite, the angels tells them to come out to the wrath and anger of Allah, and their soul is ripped from them, and they try to fight it. And I'm sure if any of you watch people die, a lot of you who are nurses, you've seen some of the people die, the unbelievers, how they fight it. They try, no. They try to fight and hold on. They don't want to go. But some of the believers, they'll die with smiles on their faces, saying, oh my Lord, and they die, happy because the angels are giving them the good news. So you're going to know when those angels come to you to take your soul at death, you're going to know if you're going to a good place or a bad. You ain't got to wait no billions of years. They're going to tell you your Lord is pleased with you. So it's okay. We know that it's gonna hurt, but it's not gonna hurt as bad as it could. But just let you know that your Lord is proud of you. And then, they'll pull your soul gently. But if you're a hypocrite, they will yank that sucker out so bad and let you know your Lord ain't happy with you. Everybody understand that? Good job, Sister Sakina. Okay, last question. When your soul is being taken, what's going on with the jinn? Where's your jinn at? Who can answer that? Where's the jinn? What happens to the jinn? What's he doing during this process? Go ahead, Sister Marianne. What is the jinn? What's going on with the jinn? Marianne?
Oh, yes, your jinn knows that you're about to die, so your jinn tries to make you commit disbelief in Allah in that moment. Like he'll make you like see like your dead parent or something like that and try to convince you to commit shirk so you can go to hell.
Exactly. That jinn will do everything in his power, even at death, to try to get you to renege in your belief in Allah. He'll come to you and try to tell you maybe you should have stayed a Christian. Maybe your mother was right after all. He'll try everything in his power to get you to say something and believe that Allah is not Allah and that this deen is not correct. So that jinn never gives up on you because he's going to go to hell and he wants you to be his companion there. Allah didn't put good jinns up to us. Allah assigned us evil jinns. We're not prophets. So our jinns are evil, put there on purpose by Allah to try to seduce us. They already know that they're denizens of the hellfire. They know that that's where they're going to be. Just like Shaitan knows that's where he's going to be. They're awliya or allies of Shaitan. Okay, so mashallah, this is what we discussed last week. We talked about the taking of the soul. Now today, I'm going to tell you guys, I was up all night preparing my lecture, my PowerPoint. I tried to personalize it to make it more personable to some of you here because I know my students and I know myself. I even tried to personalize it to make it more personable to me because this is a reminder for me too. Okay, remember the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told us all, never forget the destroyer of pleasure. Never forget death, but so many of us do. But when you come to this website, you ain't gonna forget it. Because one of the things people talk about us in our Zoom room, yes, there's a time for this, and there's a time for that. There's a time to be serious. There's a time to be devout. There's a time to relax. There's a time for this, as the prophet said, a time for that. We're not angels. We cannot stay in a state of worship 24/7. But one thing about Sunnah followers, in between the classes, we may talk and we may laugh and all that. But all of our discussions always include remembrance of Allah. Death comes up somewhere, and you guys know it. If you come into our Zoom room, you may walk in to the sisters joking and playing for a minute, but stick around. Somebody's going to talk about death. We're always reminded of death because most of the women that hang out in my Zoom room are not young women. They're over the age of 50. These are women that are single, most of them. They have no husbands, most of them. And this website, this Zoom room serves as their connection to Allah and their connection to the Muslims. Otherwise, they'd be alone in a home or an apartment with nothing but a television. So when you come into our Zoom room and you hear laughter, that's something good. Because we spend more time remembering Allah at Sunnah followers than any mosque does. I'm telling you, y'all go to the mosque and pray 5 times a day, maybe. I'm sitting here doing 5 classes a day, and my classes don't last 5 minutes. Our classes last an hour, sometimes 2. So there's more remembrance of Allah at this website than at a mosque. And by the way, my website focuses on Aqidah. What's going to save you from the hellfire? Very few mosques teach what I teach. Okay, so if these sisters want to take a break between learning about Allah to relax and joke like the Prophet and his companions did and laugh together in camaraderie like the Prophet and his companions did, they deserve that. They earn that. Because if you stick around and listen, you will see 10 minutes, let 10 minutes pass, somebody's going to talk about death. We don't forget death here. We never forget the destroyer of pleasure here. So be careful what you say about the women in my website. Okay. All right, so let's put the PowerPoint up on the screen for tonight's discussion. It's going to be very powerful. Okay, and everything I teach is based on Quran and the authentic Sunnah. That's why I use PowerPoint, because I put the hadiths up on the screen and I put the verses of the Quran up. And when you guys go to the YouTube channel, you can pause it to read them. Well, wait a minute, which one is this? Predestined. Oh, I got the wrong name. See how tired I was? This is the resurrection. In fact, hold on, guys. I cannot let this go on YouTube with the wrong name. Hold on. Shows how tired Layla. Layla be working it, girl. Yeah, all this PowerPoint and stuff I'm doing. Hold on, I cannot let this be on YouTube with the wrong name. Okay, hold on, let me do it. This is the Resurection Session 4. Okay, hold on, let me change this. The Resurrection. Okay, and let me make it like this. I can't let that go on YouTube with the wrong name. That shows how I was up all night doing this. Give me a second here, let me fix this. And home. And, oh, wait a minute, bring it down. There it is. Okay, let's try it again now. I cannot put that on YouTube with the wrong date. Okay, so now, inshallah, it should be, oops, here. Okay, so you go to the YouTube channel. This is in the playlist entitled The Resurrection. And this is the 4th session. And today what I'm going to do is speak about the causes. What causes people to have bad endings, Muslims to have bad endings. This whole series, you're not going to hear me talking about kafirs. You're going to hear, meaning when I say kafir, you're not going to hear me talking about Christians and Jews. My dawah is for the Muslim. You're going to hear me use the term hypocrite. Hypocrite. What is a hypocrite? A hypocrite is a person that says he believes in Allah, who calls himself a Muslim. But in reality, he doesn't believe in Allah. He's hiding his true belief. A hypocrite is a person that will debate or disagree with Allah's laws, Allah's rules. Okay, a hypocrite is a kafir. Okay, but it refers to Muslims who are pretenders. Okay, and a lot of people say, Sister Layla, you know, I knew a brother or a sister that just passed away. They seem to be such a good Muslim. And we hear this a lot. Sister Layla, this person was such a good Muslim. He used to go to the mosque and do the Juma prayer every Friday. He used to be at the mosque and pray Fajr. You know, he had a good family. You know, he appeared to be a Muslim who acted in accordance with Islam. But when he died, he didn't have a good ending. What causes this? Well, there are many, many reasons as to why a person who appears to be a good Muslim comes to a bad end. And this may manifest itself either right as they are dying or before they die. For example, this brother, he's such a good brother. He used to go to the mosque and do all the Juma prayers and pray all his prayers. But he got killed outside a bar. What was he doing at the bar? That's a bad ending, to get killed outside a bar. Okay? There's many, many reasons as to why certain people that we think are good Muslims have endings like this. And I'm going to go over some of those reasons today. And again, I tried to make this personable to you guys here and myself. And the number one reason why a person that you thought was such a good Muslim had a bad death is their belief system. This is something that I'm always telling you guys about. You know, we can put, a lot of Muslims put emphasis on learning how to read the Quran in Arabic. You can read the Quran in the most beautiful tajweed. It's not going to help you at death. It's not going to help you in that grave if your aqidah is not correct. Why is it that as Sunnah followers, we focus on aqidah, aqidah, aqidah? Why is it that you hear Dr. Jamali? One thing Dr. Jamali always says is aqidah, aqidah, aqidah. Dr. Asim, aqidah, aqidah, aqidah. Sheikh Morsi, Sister Layla, make more aqidah classes. Even Sheikh Atlee. Sheikh Atlee is the reason I'm teaching this class right now. Why am I teaching this class here? Because Sheikh Atlee, he said, Layla, give them more aqidah. Layla, teach them about the resurrection. This class is courtesy of Sheikh Muhammad Saeed Atlee. Aqidah is everything, guys. If a person's belief system is not correct, then none of your other deeds are of any value. You can be a person that prays every day, 5 times a day. You can have the best manners, the best character. But if something is incorrect in your belief system, then all your deeds are null and void. Does everybody understand that? And this is why a lot of Muslims come to bad endings at death, because they didn't believe La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah properly. I'll give you an example. I'm teaching you all about predestination. Look how many of you believe that you can change the decree of Allah with your supplication. Many of you believe that. If that were true, then keep on praying for immortality and see if you'll get it. To say that I can make dua right now and it's going to change what Allah has already written for me, that means that that book is not complete. You're saying that the book of Allah is still open. Allah is just sitting around waiting for you to make dua, to see if you're going to make dua. No, your dua, your supplication is part of your decree. Allah already knew that you would supplicate. Your dua, your supplication changed your decree when Allah was having your story written. But now that the story has been wrote, nothing changing. You can pray for immortality all you want to. You can pray to be rich all you want to. You can pray to be whatever. The ink is dry. The book is sealed. But for those people that think that they can change their decree, that's incorrect. Their aqidah is corrupt. Look how many Muslims out there believe that Shaitan is a fallen angel. There's a lot of Muslims that will tell you that Shaitan was an angel that fell in disgrace. That's not correct. Look how many Muslims out there tell you that the dead can hear you and the dead can see you. We've talked about this. Even though Allah says in the Quran, in the interpretation of the meaning, you cannot make the dead see, nor can you make the dead hear. Allah says in the Quran, there's a barrier. He has a barrier to prevent the dead from even thinking to come back here if they wanted to. But look how many Muslims will tell you, Sister Layla, I was told by the Imam that when a Muslim dies, he can walk the earth and talk to his family for 3 days. Sister Layla, I was told by the Imam, that if we talk to the dead, they can hear and they can come back to us. This is not the correct belief system, guys. So a lot of people, have bad endings because their aqidah was corrupt. Listen to what Allah says. in the interpretation of the meaning. At death, it will become apparent to them what they did not know. Hello. I tell you guys all the time, seeking the proper knowledge of Islam is an obligation upon each and every one of us. You're supposed to know what La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah means. Allah's not going to accept the excuse that you weren't taught properly. He's going to ask you, why didn't you go out and learn from the correct people? Listen to what Allah says in the interpretation, the meaning. Tell them, O Muhammad, shall we tell you the greatest losers in respect of their deeds? Those whose efforts have been wasted in this life because they thought that they were acquiring good by their deeds. But their deeds meant nothing, guys, because their belief system was not correct. You don't want to be the man that will stand before Allah on a day of judgment bankrupt. You don't want to be in your grave bankrupt. All the good deeds you did, all the prayers you did, all the charity you gave to not come and help you because you didn't believe in Allah correctly. You don't want to go out like that. But unfortunately, guys, a lot of people do. And that's why you see some Muslims dying. They're on their deathbed. You're holding their hand and they start saying, they'll start looking out at that spot because they see the angel of death coming. And they'll be like, they'll get the news. Come to your Lord. Come to your Lord's anger. You said you believed in Allah, but you didn't. You denied my qadr. You denied what I said about the angels. You denied that I said the dead can't hear. See if anybody can hear you. And that's why they look out, they go, oh, no. They're being told. And when that angel's coming to get those Muslims, they're being told their Aqidah wasn't correct. They're being told by those angels that their deeds are lost. That's why they fight it. They'll go, and they'll look at you like, help me, help me, help me. How many of you seen people die like that were Muslim, that you thought were righteous? If they're so righteous, why are they not calm? Why are they not, are they scared, terrified? Because they're told that they were wrong, that they should have learned correctly. So that's a bad ending for people like that. Okay? We have to understand as Muslims, guys, everyone who believes in something incorrectly, whether from your own opinion or because you chose to follow people who believe that. That means all your practice and good deeds will be of no help because, again, seeking knowledge, seeking a correct belief system was an obligation. The only thing that will help us at the time of death is knowledge that is in accordance to the book of Allah and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's some Muslims that follow madhabs. Look at how they die. Have you seen any of them die? There's some people who follow madhabs, and you try to tell them that their madhab was wrong about something basic like the qadr of Allah. Something basic like Shaitan was not a fallen angel. They said, no, I'm gonna stick with my madhab. Look at how that person dies at death. No. They're being told, why didn't you listen? Why did you choose to blindly follow others, especially when the truth was presented to you? You can't blame it on what everybody else is doing. You can't blame it on what everybody else was saying. It was your responsibility to learn Islam the correct way and to base all your knowledge and all your understanding of this religion on what Allah said in the Prophet, not no imam, not no mufti, not no sheikh come a dime a dozen. But nowadays, the Muslims are following muftis and sheikhs and imams and come a dime a dozen. So again, the number one reason why some people come to a bad ending at death, they're fighting it, terrified, screaming for help, and that you thought these were righteous Muslims, is because their aqidah was wrong. Also, another reason why some Muslims come to a bad ending at death is because they were committing sins deliberately. Now, again, none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. But you know it's haram to smoke marijuana. You know it's haram to smoke cigarettes, but you still smoke cigarettes. You still smoke marijuana. You know fornication is a horrific sin, but you lived your life shacking up with a woman that was not your wife. You know, anytime we have lived our lives deliberately, intentionally committing a sin, and we have not repented from that sin, when you die, you're going to have a bad ending, brother. I've seen this. Now, I have witnessed sinful Muslims die. I ain't seen not one go out well. I've seen them all fighting, looking scared, grabbing your hand, crying. I've even seen some die in the sin. Like I said, shot outside a bar. What you doing inside the bar? We don't go into a bar to give doubt. Are you crazy? Shot and killed in a crack house. How many of you heard of Muslims that were killed in a crack house? That's a bad ending. Okay? What were you doing there? You know, the sinful Muslims, they don't have a pleasant death, guys. I'm sorry. They fight, they scream. It's very painful for them too. Whoever persists in sin, they get used to that sin. And everything that a person gets used to in his or her life will come back to haunt them at the time of death. I remember when I had my bariatric surgery. No, not the bariatric surgery. When I had my hysterectomy, my first surgery was a hysterectomy. Back then, it was in the 80s. I used to be an IRC operator. I was an IRC operator on FNet. People that's my age probably remember. Y'all young kids don't know. This is before the internet became public like we got. This is before Windows. This is back when we ran Linux machines. Okay? I was an IRC operator on FNet on several servers. And I remember I had a channel that we used to do what we call IRC wars back then. Oh yeah, we'd make robots, our own bots, and put them in the servers, and we try to take over people's channels. I was running channel Iran. I was also running channel Egypt, and I was also running channel Muslim. Okay, those were my 3 channels. Okay, and I had a bunch of bots in there, and all my other hosts had bots in there. And of course, and I also was an operator for channel Kuwait. Okay. And I remember people would try to take the channel. That was the game, try to take the channels from each other. I'd have to nuke them off. Okay. You know, channel England would try to take channel Egypt from me. Okay. Channel Saudi would try to take channel Muslim from me. We had IRC. It was fun back in those days. And I remember when I had to have my hysterectomy, that was the first surgery I ever had, and I was scared to death, never been put to sleep before. I remember when I woke up from that surgery, my doctor said, Layla, because my doctor was Muslim. She said, who's Kufrit? I said, what? Kufrit. She said, and while we had you out, put you out to do the surgery, you kept saying, Kufrit, Kufrit. They trying to take Iran from us. Kufrit, Kufrit, get your bots. I said, did I? She said, yeah. You kept yelling, get your box, get your box. You know, this and sleep is the brother of death. So it made sense to me when she said, I said, girl, I'm so into that IRC. That's what I'm doing. I'm so busy on there doing those cyber wars that it'll be the last thing I think of at death. Well, this is what happens. You know, our prophet taught us that at the time of death, whatever you used to do a lot before death will come to you. For example, if the person was more inclined to do acts of worship, then that's what the person will think of and remember the most at the time of death. That's why the prophet woke up, you know, one saying, brush my teeth, give me the wudu. He wanted to keep himself clean. Even though I didn't die from my surgery, but sleep is the brother of death, I wanted to get your bots. They trying to take Channel Iran from us, cool freak, get your bots. Because that's all I did. I was an IRC up. I spent all my time doing cyber wars, taking over country channels. Okay? The prophet taught us that a person, you know, if the person was inclined to sin, then that's what he will think about at the time of his death. He said it may preoccupy him so much that it may stop him from repenting. And it becomes a barrier between him and his Lord. And this is why those people who you saw killed, who was a Muslim brother killed outside the bar, that's the sin that he probably was doing. He was getting drunk in secret. And Allah had already decreed when he was going to die. So Allah had him do the deed. Had him do the deed that he did the most in this world. He went and got him something to drink and happened to get shot as a bystander outside the bar. That's why a lot of people end up in places they should not have been. How do you know they should not have been there? It may be that that's where they used to frequent, or it may be the place where they died entailed the sin they did the most. Maybe he was going to the drugstore to get a pack of cigarettes and happened to get gunned down. He was inclined to smoke. He became overwhelmed with the desire to smoke, because death was inevitable for him. So there's other things, that factors that go on with people at death that we may not be aware of. Oh, he got shot outside the drugstore, Layla. What was he at the drugstore for? Probably buying a pack of cigarettes, buying a pack of condoms, using an illegal way. You never know. So this is what the prophet meant, that if a person persists in committing sins, that's what they will think about right before death comes. And if the person is dying on their deathbed, they would be just like I was with that surgery. Cool, forget those bots. They trying to take over Iran, Channel Iran, you know, subhanAllah. Something to think about, guys, people that commit sins. This is why it's the prophet taught us to repent. Now, for those people who do not knowingly, intentionally commit sins, they don't have to worry about this happening. This is why Allah says your home is better for you. We were talking about this in our Zoom room yesterday. Like Sister Sabrine was saying, what sins? Well, I look at myself. That's why I stay home. I let Jayla have the car. The car is just going to get me in trouble. Bring me my coffee. You can keep the car all day as long as you bring me my coffee. Okay, because I got classes to teach. My home is better for me because when I'm in this home, all I'm doing is sitting on this computer teaching about Allah. If I had the car, I'd be driving out there trying to pick up Latifah. And maybe me and Latifah might go to Denny's to get something to eat. Then I'm going to sit there and make fun of the people like I used to do when I was a kid. I like to make fun of people. That's a stupid thing I do. I'll sit there and just say, Latif, let's play the what they doing game and sit there and make fun of people. So that's why I stay in my house and I let her keep the car. So I ain't got to go get my buddy Latifah and we going out there and make fun of people. Hello, your home is better for you, you know? But there's a lot of people that do sin. But for those of us who can honestly say, I can honestly say, guys, I am not perfect. I make mistakes all the time. My biggest mistake is my tongue. I get angry and I'll use that B word. Y'all know that about me. I'll use that B word in a heartbeat. Y'all heard me use it a few times. But I always ask Allah to forgive me when I slip up. But as far as going out to drink, smoke, fornicate, adulterate, steal, rob, murder, slander, lie, that ain't me. I'm not deliberately, intentionally doing nothing like that. Okay? So for those of us who can honestly say that we're not deliberately, intentionally disobeying Allah, we ain't got to worry about being driven to the sin before death. But for the people who sin and their sins outnumber their actions of obedience and they don't repent, they're driven to that sinful state right before death. Let me give y'all a beautiful example from the Sunnah. This is one of my favorite hadiths. Undoubtedly, what a person sees in his or her dreams are things that he or she is used to in their life. So the person who has spent his or her life seeking knowledge will end up dreaming. You know, look at those of you who come to this website. You spend most of your time in this Zoom room. What type of dreams do you have, Fresno? What type of dreams do you have, Norto? What type of dreams do you have, Fatima? You always dreaming about the Zoom room. You dreaming about us sitting here learning, Layla making a funny joke. You're dreaming about how Layla teaches the kids and uses the cat and the horse and the cow. You know, you're dreaming about a hadith that we discussed. You're dreaming about something that Dr. Jamali said. You're dreaming about something that Dr. Asim said. You know, so what you do, the majority of in your life, you dream about it. That's just the state of humans. For example, if a person spends most of his time as a tailor, he's going to have dreams about sewing and making clothes. Okay, that's just how Allah made us as humans. Now, death is more intense than sleep. If a person spends most of their time doing a sin, that's what, again, he will think about at death. It will come to his mind, just like those Kufrit. Get your bots. They trying to take over Channel Iran. Just like that came to my mind when I was at the brother of death. Okay? Well, when a person is dying, your mind is going to think about that sin or whatever it is you were used to doing. And sometimes, like I said, you know, your soul will be inclined to go to it. That's how people die committing that sin. I died going to get a pack of cigarettes. He was killed in a car accident going to get a pack of cigarettes. He was killed in a car accident going to get some weed. He was killed outside a bar. Okay. She was a bystander and got shot outside a crack house. You know, this is just how it happens, guys. So it's best to be the person that repents. Listen to what Dahabi said, that Mujahid said. He said, there is no one who dies. And I want y'all to ponder this. Anytime a person dies, that person's friend who they used to hang out will come and sit by him. For example, one man who used to play chess was dying. And one of the friends he used to play with came to him and said, say la ilaha illallah. Instead of the man saying la ilaha illallah, he said checkmate, and then he died. The words that he used to say the most in his life came to tongue instead of the words of Allah. Now, just like it did with me, Kufrit, get your butt. They taking over Iran. That came to mind, not la ilaha illallah. And I'm going to tell you guys, most doctors and nurses will tell you when they watch a Muslim die, the hardest thing to do is to get that Muslim to say la ilaha illallah. They will talk about everything but that. They will say checkmate. They will say get your bots from kufr. They'll say whatever they used to do in their life, but la ilaha illallah won't come out. Very few Muslims die with la ilaha illallah. I remember my doctor, I used to have Dr. Siddiqui. He said out of all the deaths he's seen as a doctor, only 2 people ever said la ilaha illallah on that table. He could not get them other Muslims to say la ilaha illallah. Okay, they were saying anything but that. Also, we have another hadith where a man used to sit with people who drank wine. When that man was on his deathbed, someone came and tried to get him to say the Shahada. The man opened his mouth and instead of saying la ilaha illallah, he said, pour me another one. And then he died. Subhanallah. I'll never forget about 25 years ago. 25 years ago. One of my relatives who lives in Kuwait, from my father's side, one of my Arabic relatives lives in Kuwait. She had shared with me. She said, Sister Layla, let me tell you about this accident that just occurred here. She said there were 2 young boys riding in a Jeep through the desert. A camel ran out from the desert to the street, to the road, and they hit the camel. The car flipped over. She said, my husband, who's a police officer, arrived on the scene and they saw that the one kid was dead and the other boy was still alive. So she said, my husband said they tried to give the boy Shahada. They tried to get him to say la ilaha illallah. She said the boy opened his eyes and all he said was, living la vida loca, living la vida loca. That's the song that was playing in the car. Because when the Jeep flipped over, the car was still playing Ricky Martin's Living La Vida Loca. So this poor kid, he was only 17 or 18. He opened his mouth, but instead of saying La ilaha illallah, he went, Living La Vida Loca, living La Vida Loca, and he died. And that bothered her husband. Her husband said it was so sad because the poor boy was terrified. You could see the fear in his eyes, and you can see when the angel pulled his soul because he was crying tears. And his eyes followed the soul, and he was living la vida loca. They kept him from saying la ilaha illallah. So we have to be careful, guys. You know, at death, whatever you did the most in this world will come to haunt you as that angel is pulling your soul. And that's why it's hard to get Muslims to say the Shahada at death. They'll say checkmate. They'll say pass me a drink. They'll say get your bots cool for it, or living la vida loca. Subhanallah. Also, another cause of a bad ending, and this is a big one that many of the women on my website suffer with. Another cause of a bad ending is weakness of faith. I'm not talking about weakness of faith because I'm talking about weakness of faith due to your attachment to the life of this world. Subhanallah. If a person has weakness in their faith due to their attachment to the life of this world, it in turn will cause that person's love for Allah to weaken. Remember, we were created to worship Allah. We were put here to be tested in our belief in Him. This world, this dunya is a testing ground. I tell you sisters all the time, you should never be afraid to say, I'm 50 years old, I'm 80 years old, I'm 90 years old. Don't ever call yourself 90 years young, 50 years young, or 30 years young. Anybody. Our Prophet Muhammad said, anyone who lives over the age of 32 is old, because the lifespan of this nation is just 60. You're old. You're old. But for those people who still think they're young and they're too attached to this dunya, as death approaches them, their love for this world becomes stronger and it takes over until they have no room in their heart for Allah. And so what you see is the older these people get, instead of them getting closer to Allah by practicing, making sure that their aqidah is correct, by making sure they can recite the Fatiha, they're going to school, getting college degrees. One of the worst things I've ever heard is a 70-year-old woman trying to get a master's degree. A 60-year-old woman trying to get a master's degree. First of all, you're deluded. What company in America is going to hire a 60, a 70, a 80, or a 90-year-old anybody? Because you're on death's door. They ain't going to invest the insurance in you. They ain't going to invest the time in you. They ain't going to invest their corporation dollars in your old, dried up behind. That master's degree should have been received when you were 20, 30, 40 at the most. 50, you're done. You're done. Ain't no company even hiring you. You're done. Okay? But you will find these people 80 years old. Instead of coming to Sunnah followers, for example, to learn how to pronounce the Fatiha. We have the Quran Tajweed class here. You guys were here? Qul huwallahu ahad. How many Muslims could recite it properly here? Out of all 30 Muslims in my website, only one recited it perfectly, and that was Yasmin. Only one out of 35. And these people been Muslim all their life and cannot even say Allahu. And these are young people. You got some women and some men 70 and 80 years old that still cannot say Allahu. And ain't trying to learn how to say it. But they going to college to get a master's degree at their old degenerate age. Well, this is an example of love for this dunya. You're too attached to this world. You're more attached to this world than you are Allah, because the Prophet Muhammad taught us the older we get, the closer we get to our grave. So we should tighten up in doing the deeds that are pleasing to Allah. And we should assure that our aqidah, that our belief system is correct. But for these people that are too attached to this world, they give in to their worldly desires. They go to college. They become airlines, try to get a job as an airline stewardess when they're 80. They put more emphasis on their worldly desires instead of preparing for the hereafter. And as a result, darkness consumes their heart. That darkness covers the little bit of light that they would have had in there. And then when death comes, the love of Allah is weak because they know that they're getting ready to die. So they become angry. They think about my job, my school, my degree. I ain't finished school yet. I'm still trying to get a master's degree, even though I'm 100. They don't want to leave this earth. It hurts them. And Allah sees this in the person. Allah knows that this person is more attached to the world than that person is to him. So Allah will have that angel yank that soul. And that person ends up dying a miserable death. So a lot of these old brothers and sisters y'all run upon that died, they couldn't say the Fatiha. They didn't know the rules of how to pray correctly. They weren't dressing correctly, but they were going to college to get a master's degree at 80. And when death comes to them, they're going to be fighting it. No, I ain't ready. Or the sign of death happens to them. Allah could have decreed that that person dies this year. How many of you know people like this? A person was 80 years old and died, and he had just started school. See that? Allah will cause that person to do the deed again that's most pleasing to them. You wasted your money. Instead of taking that money to pay off your debts with, you took out another loan to get a master's degree at 80 years old, and Allah took your soul. And now you dying with that debt on you. Allah will do that. Allah knows those of us who prefer this dunya over him. Allah knows who those people are. So he may put that person in a situation where the last deeds he do determine where he's going to end up at. The last thing this person did before he died was he took out a student loan to get a master's degree in psychology when he's 80 years old, and no company in America is going to hire an 80-year-old anything to work for them. Okay? And this is how most people are. Most people, unfortunately, guys, most Muslims, their heart is overwhelmed with this dunya, with something in this world, be it their children, their jobs, or whatever, and they waste their time. Instead of getting closer to Allah by perfecting their prayers, perfecting al-Fatiha, perfecting their Aqidah, they're busy trying to get that college degree, make more money at the job, take out more loans and all of that. Listen at this wonderful hadith. Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik, he went to Medina as a pilgrim. And he said, is there any person here who knew any of the Sahaba? And the people said, yes, Abu Hazm is here. So he went to him and said, oh, Abu Hazm, why are we afraid of death? And why do we as humans hate death? He said, the reason that we hate death is because all your effort has been for the sake of this world. And you know that you have neglected the hereafter, and you hate to leave this world because you've striven so hard for it, and you know that you've made no preparations for the hereafter. And that's when Sulaiman said, wow, that's right, you spoke the truth. And he said, so what's in store for people like us with Allah? The man said, check your deeds. Check your life. Check what you have done in accordance to the book of Allah. Refer your deeds, refer your actions to the book of Allah and see how far you've gotten with him. And this is one of the best hadiths that I try to share with the women in my Zoom room. You older women, you know, we're old. We're way over 30. You're closer to 100. That's why I jack y'all ages up. I'm sorry, all of us, we are all closer to 100 than we are to 20. We're old. Are we attached to this world? Or are we making preparations for the hereafter? Some people say, Sister Layla, you're teaching so many classes. This is my way of preparing for death. There's no such thing as too many classes for me to teach. Because if I wasn't teaching, I'd be out in the street, sitting in Denny's with Latifah, making fun of the people, blowing away all my deeds. There's no such thing as too many preparations for the hereafter. This world will take you away from that. How many of you have allowed this world to take you away from that? Okay. So when we talk about people having a bad ending, the bad ending can be one of two levels. One is worse than the other. For the person who has a bad ending, the Muslim, the most serious level is that which will doom that person to hell. And that's when that person's heart is overwhelmed with doubt or denial of Allah at the time of death. In other words, their aqidah is not correct. You are doubting that polygamy is good. You're doubting that the hijab is good. You're doubting that wearing a beard is good. This will form an eternal barrier between you and Allah. And this will condemn you to hell forever. That's the worst one, guys. We have to make sure that our aqidah is correct. And that's why I tell the women on my Zoom room, all of you over the age of 40, you better be putting emphasis on these classes, on what I'm teaching, instead of on your children, your husbands, your job, your school, and making money. Some of us like to make money. But in reality, the money is making you. Then the second level is when a person's heart at the moment of death is overwhelmed with love for the life of this world, to the point where he doesn't want to leave it. All they can think about are the things that they cared about here, the money, the job, the drugs, the sex, or whatever. And then Allah will pull that person's soul in a rough way. And that person won't be in paradise as no green bird. That person's going to have to do some time in hell, guys. He may not be forever like the person with the incorrect belief system, but he will be in hell. And one thing that we have to understand, Allah always gives us hope. Even if a person dies too attached to this world, he's going to do some time in hell. But as long as your belief system was correct, you will eventually come out. Either Allah will have you removed on the day of judgment. When you stand before him, he may say, okay, you gave me enough time in hell. Now you can just enter paradise. Or he may say, I still ain't satisfied. Give me 1,000 more years. But the thing is, as long as your aqidah, your belief system was correct, and you had just a grain of belief in Allah, you will eventually come out. But for those of us whose aqidah is not correct, you ain't nothing but a kafir. And you gonna burn, baby, burn. You gonna be of the left hand. Allah is not gonna speak to you. Allah is not gonna look at you. He's just gonna tell the angels to drag you by your face and throw you in hell, because you were given a life, a long life to live. You were over the age of 30. You should have known, what El Qadr is. You should have known that Shaitan was a jinn. You should have known that the dead can't hear you. You should have known that there's a barrier between this world and the next. You should have known that everything Allah made lawful is good and clean. You should have known these things. So Allah is just going to have you dragged and thrown on your face in hell. Aqidah. That's what we need to focus on. All you sisters that's over the age of 40, you can hang up your school books. That's done. You better come in here and get that Akida together. All you women over 40, it ain't about ripping and running the streets. You ain't young, you old. It ain't about drop it like it's hot. Because believe you me, my children here tell you on this Zoom room, no, even though it's not. But the hellfire's hot. You better make sure you paying attention in class. So you got the right understanding of your Akida. Everybody understand? Okay, I'm going to close out here for tonight. I really hope that this class was of benefit. I took the time last night to try to personalize it for all of us, including me. Okay? So, subhanakala huma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. If there's any questions or comments, inshallah, you can type them on the screen.